Hi everyone, I'm Doug from DigiPen in Redmond. In this video, we'll learn about the important game design concept of feedback and how we can use it to improve our games. Imagine a video game hero in a battle with an enemy. The monster winds up and deals our hero a crushing blow. What do you expect to see and hear? If you've played many video games, you might expect to hear a damage sound effect. And perhaps the hero might grunt a bit. They might flicker a different color to show they've been hurt, and they'd probably go through an animation that plays whenever they take damage. The screen might even wiggle a little bit. All of these individual effects combine to make sure the player knows that something important has happened. The hero got hit. These effects are examples of what we call feedback. Feedback is the word we use for the way that a game tells the player what's going on. In the past, we learned about the HUD, which is where information can be shown to the player, such as their score, the hero's HP, how much time is left in the current stage, and so on. The HUD provides important feedback to the player, but it can't do everything. It's best used for data that the player needs to be able to see at a glance whenever they want, but there's so much more than that. Almost every action in the game calls for some kind of feedback. The more important the action is to the player, the more feedback it should get. For example, if the hero takes damage, then the player might see their HP change in the HUD. There might be a damage sound effect, and the hero might change color and display a damage animation. Not to mention that the screen could appear to shake, the player's controller might vibrate a little bit, and any number of additional effects could occur. This is all because of how important it is for the player to be aware of the hero taking damage. If, on the other hand, an enemy takes damage, there should be a sound effect, and the enemy might change color and have an animation for it, but that's usually enough. It's more important for the player to know that the hero has taken damage than it is for them to know that an enemy has been hit. There are many different kinds of feedback used in games, but they generally fall into three main categories: visual feedback, audio feedback, and haptic feedback. Visual feedback is feedback that you can see. It includes text popping up or numbers changing, character animations, things changing color, screen shaking, and so on. Audio feedback is feedback that you can hear. It includes sound effects, changes to the background music, character speech, and so on. Haptic feedback is feedback that you can feel. Its name in English comes from a Greek word that means touch. In most video games, haptic feedback is limited just to controller vibration, but some games use specialized equipment to let the player feel feedback in other ways, such as a racing game with a steering wheel that provides resistance. Let's enhance the experience of playing Scratch Invaders by adding more feedback. Load what you've already done in that project, or visit the link in the description below, and then click the See Inside button. First, let's add a sound effect that plays when the hero gets hit. Click the Sounds tab at the top, and then click the Choose a Sound button down here. We want something that sounds good for when the hero takes damage. You can select anything you like, but you may wish to limit your search by clicking the Effects category at the top. This crunch sound is pretty good. Click your chosen sound and it will be added to the hero's sound list. Before we move on, change its name to Damage. While we're here, let's also add a sound that plays when the hero is defeated. Click the Choose a Sound button again. This time, we're looking for something that really feels like we've lost the game. This oops sound is perfect. Click your chosen sound to add it, and change its name to Game Over. Next, we should provide some visual feedback for being damaged, so click the Costumes tab. We're going to make it so that the hero flashes a different color a few times when they're hit. We'll do this by adding a new costume. Before adding the new costume, though, we should rename the current one. Change its name to Main, since it's the main costume the hero uses most of the time. Then right-click the main costume in the list on the left and choose to duplicate it. Rename the copy Damage. Now it's time to edit the costume. We want it to look the same as it already does, except it should be all one solid color. This is quite easy. With the arrow tool selected, drag-select the entire costume, and then click the color picker and set the color to whatever you like. In our case, we'll choose red, since red is closely associated with damage in video games. In your case, you might choose a different color, especially if your hero is already mostly red in the first place. Now that that's done, select the main costume again and then click the Code tab and we can move on. In the Code area, find the Hit by Enemy function. This is where we will add the feedback code. Right now, when the hero is hit, they take damage, and if they lose enough HP, we call the defeated function and the game ends. We're going to add another function that's called here, but only if they're not defeated. Let's begin by adding the new function. Click the pink My Blocks category, and then click the Make a Block button. Name the new function Damaged. Now, this if-then block ensures that the defeated block is only run if this condition is true. But in addition to this, we want the damaged block to run when the condition is false. In other words, if the condition is true, then call defeated, else call damaged. There's a block for this, the if-then-else block. Click the gold control category and find the if-then-else block in the block palette. Drag it into the code area and set it nearby. The if-then-else block checks the condition in its condition slot. If it's true, it runs the code in its top mouth. If it's not true, it runs the code in its bottom mouth. It will never run both. In either case, after it's done, code execution moves on to whatever is below it. In this situation, if the hero's HP is greater than 0, then we want to call the damaged function. Else, we want to call defeated. Drag the greater than block out of the not block in the if-then block and drop it in the condition slot of the if-then-else block, like this. Now click the pink My Blocks category. Find the damaged block and attach it inside the top mouth of the if-then-else block. Then drag the defeated block out of the mouth of the if-then block and attach it inside the bottom mouth of the if-then-else block. Now we're done with the if-then block, so drag and drop it onto the block palette to delete it. Finally, add the if-then-else block to the body of the Hit by Enemy function. Now we can add our sound effects. Click the magenta Sound category and add a Start Sound block to the body of the Damaged function, and then add another one to the Defeated function. Make sure that the block in Defeated has Game Over selected from its sound list, and select Damage from the sound list in the other block. Next, it's time to add our visual feedback. We want the sprite to flicker when it gets hit. This means it should change costumes back and forth a few times, so we'll use a loop. Click the gold control category and add a repeat block to the body of the damaged function. In its value field, type the number 2. You can change this later if you like. Now click the purple Looks category and attach 2 copies of the Switch Costume block inside the mouth of the repeat block. Make sure the first one has Damage chosen from its list, and select Main from the costume list in the other one. Now, if we leave it the way it is, we won't see the costume change at all, so we need to use the old wait 0 seconds trick. Click the gold Control category and attach a wait block between the two switch costume blocks inside the mouth of the repeat block, and then attach another wait block below the bottom switch costume block like this. In the value fields in both wait blocks, type the number 0. Now click the green flag and try it out. Deliberately get hit and you'll hear a sound and see the hero flash. Lose all your HP and you'll hear the game over sound. Next, we'll add some feedback for when an enemy takes damage, so select the enemy sprite and find its hit by bullet function. We're going to do basically the same thing here as what we did in the hero's code. Click the pink My Blocks category, and then click the Make a Block button. Name the new function Damaged, and then find the damaged block in the block palette. Drag it into the code area and set it nearby. Now click the gold Control category and drag an if-then-else block into the code area and set it nearby. Now drag the greater than block out of the not block in the condition slot of the if-then block in the hit by bullet function, and drop it in the condition slot of the if-then-else block. Now find the damaged block you set aside earlier and attach it inside the top mouth of the if-then-else block. Next, drag the defeated block out of the mouth of the if-then block and attach it inside the bottom mouth of the if-then-else block. Now drag the if-then block and drop it on the block palette to delete it. Finally, add the if-then-else block to the body of the hit by bullet function. We should somehow indicate how much damage each enemy has taken. One easy way to do this is by changing the sprite's brightness effect each time it gets hit. Click the purple Looks category and find the Change Effect block in the block palette. Add it to the body of the Damaged function and select the Brightness effect from its list. Now we can try it out again. Click the green flag and play the game. In addition to the feedback we added for the player being damaged, you can also tell how many hits each enemy has taken. How much more could we do to improve the feedback of Scratch Invaders? We could add a sound effect that plays when an enemy is hit. We could add a sound or some music for when the player wins the game. We could add little score text pop-ups each time an enemy is defeated. We could make the hero's costume change when they're low on HP. There's a lot we could still add, but not enough time to cover it all, so you should try to add some more feedback on your own. Let's recap what we've learned in this video. First, we learned what feedback is, the way that a game tells the player what's going on. The HUD is a part of a game's feedback, but besides what we show in the HUD, almost every action that happens in a game calls for some kind of feedback. The more important the action is to the player, the more feedback it should get. We learned that there are many different kinds of feedback, but they fall into three main categories: visual feedback, audio feedback, and haptic feedback. Finally, we applied our new knowledge by improving the feedback of Scratch Invaders. In the next video, we'll make Scratch Invaders more interesting by expanding the ranks of the game's enemies.